The rain hadn't stopped since morning, and the city outside the tall glass windows looked like a watercolor painting, blurred, quiet, and drenched in silver. Ethan Blake sat at the corner table of the most expensive restaurant in town, a place he never chose for himself. He wasn't here to impress anyone. In truth, he didn't even want to be there. But he had promised his best friend, his business partner, to take his place on a blind date he had arranged. "Just go, Ethan," his friend had said. "You need to talk to someone who isn't a lawyer, a client, or your laptop." What his friend didn't know was that Ethan Blake, the youngest CEO of a global tech company, wasn't lonely because of his success. He was lonely because success had cost him everything that once made him human. His wife had died 3 years ago, leaving behind their 2-year-old daughter, Lily. Since then, every day was just work and fatherhood, a routine he never complained about but never truly lived in. His daughter was his whole world, yet deep down, he was tired. Tired of being the man who could fix any corporate crisis but couldn't fix the emptiness inside him. That if you believe that kindness, second chances, and love can heal even the deepest wounds, then please like this video, share it with your friends, comment your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe. Because this story might just remind someone that love always finds its way, even when we stop looking for it. The waiter poured red wine into the glasses as Ethan checked his watch. His date was late by 20 minutes. He didn't blame her. Blind dates were awkward enough, and he wasn't exactly great company these days. He was about to call it off when the door opened, and a woman stepped in, shaking off her beige coat. She wasn't wearing designer clothes or glittering jewelry like most women who came to this restaurant. Her coat was slightly worn, her shoes simple, her hair braided loosely over one shoulder. She looked around nervously, holding her small purse close to her chest. Ethan knew it was her before she even said his name. There was something disarmingly gentle about her presence. When she smiled, a shy, uncertain smile, it felt like the noise of the restaurant dimmed. Her name was Claire. She worked as a kindergarten teacher in a small public school on the outskirts of the city. She was not the woman his friend had described. Apparently, a mix-up had happened. The woman his friend had arranged to meet had canceled, and the restaurant mistakenly seated Claire at his table instead. IT first, they laughed about it. It was ridiculous, a CEO on a date with a teacher because of a scheduling mistake. But as minutes turned into hours, Ethan realized he hadn't felt this kind of warmth in years. Claire talked about her students with such tenderness, about how one little boy saved half his lunch to take home for his baby sister, or how she spent weekends painting small murals in the school hallways because they couldn't afford to hire anyone. She didn't complain about her life, yet Ethan could see how hard it must be. Her clothes, her tired eyes, the way she avoided ordering the expensive dishes, everything spoke of quiet struggle. When the waiter brought the bill, Claire instinctively reached for her purse. Ethan stopped her with a gentle smile, but her eyes met his, serious and proud. "Please," she said softly, "let me at least pay for my tea. I don't like feeling like I owe anyone." That one line struck him deeply. It wasn't about the money. It was about dignity. And in that moment, Ethan saw more strength in her than in any boardroom full of men he'd ever met. He went home that night with Lily asleep in his arms, her little teddy bear tucked under her chin. Yet his thoughts were miles away, back at that restaurant, with the woman who didn't belong in his world, and yet somehow fit perfectly in his heart. Days passed. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about her. He found himself checking the clock, wondering if she was still at school, still smiling at her students, still drinking cheap coffee between lessons. Against every logic and reason, he found himself wanting to see her again. He didn't want to scare her away with his wealth, so he did something he'd never done before. He visited the small school she worked at. He brought donation boxes filled with art supplies, computers, and books, all anonymously labeled as from a friend. When Claire discovered who had sent them, she was shocked. She confronted him, politely but firmly. "You shouldn't have done that," she said, standing in the school courtyard, the wind brushing through her hair. "I didn't ask for help." Ethan smiled quietly. "I know," he replied. "But sometimes, people who give everything to others deserve a little kindness back." That was the day something shifted between them. They started meeting again. Coffee after school, walks in the park with Lily, long conversations about dreams they were too afraid to chase. Lily adored her instantly, calling her Miss Sunshine. Ethan, who had forgotten how to laugh freely, started laughing again. The little girl who had lost her mother found comfort in Claire's gentle ways, and Ethan found himself healing in places he didn't even know were broken. But not everyone was happy about it. The board of directors began whispering. The CEO dating a schoolteacher? One of them scoffed. It doesn't look good for our image. His friend, the same one who had set up the blind date, warned him, Ethan, she's sweet, but she's not from our world. Think about your reputation, your company, your daughter. For a moment, doubt crept in. He wondered if maybe they were right. He was a CEO with a multi-million-dollar empire to protect. She was barely making rent. But then he remembered how she looked when she talked about her students, how her eyes softened when she held Lily's hand, how her laughter made everything else fade. He didn't need the world's approval. He just needed her truth. So he made a choice, one that would cost him more than money. He invited her to a corporate gala, introducing her not as a date, but as someone important in his life. The room went silent. Cameras flashed. Some smiled politely. Others whispered behind their glasses of champagne. Claire stood beside him, her hand trembling, until Ethan gently held it. Let them talk, he whispered. They've already spent years talking about my success. It's time they see what happiness looks like. That night, Claire's eyes filled with tears, not from embarrassment, but from something deeper. She had never been someone's choice in a room full of options. And for the first time, she realized she didn't have to apologize for who she was. Months passed. Their bond grew stronger, grounded not in luxury, but in love's quiet simplicity. Claire's kindness began to change Ethan's company, too. She inspired a new initiative, funding education for underprivileged children. It wasn't just charity. It was a reflection of her heart, and Ethan made sure her vision became reality. Then, one evening, as the sun set behind the glass walls of his office, Ethan did something unexpected. He brought Lily and Claire to the same restaurant where they had first met. The lights glowed warmly, just as they had that night. Lily, now a little older, giggled as she pointed at the wine glasses and whispered, Daddy, remember when you met Miss Sunshine here? Ethan knelt beside Claire, took her hands in his, and said softly, That night, I came here because I thought love was something I'd lost forever. But then you walked in, and I realized sometimes the wrong date can lead you to the right person. He opened a small velvet box, revealing a simple ring, not made to impress, but to promise. Claire, will you let me spend the rest of my life making sure you never feel small, unseen, or alone again? Tears filled her eyes as she nodded, unable to speak. Lily clapped her tiny hands, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt complete. Not as a CEO, not as a man defined by titles, but as a father, a lover, a human being who had found home in a heart that asked for nothing and gave everything. That if this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment below about the moment that made you believe in love again. It means more than you know.